What is your name, your title, and what inspired you to run for office?
My name's Chris McCoy. I am best known locally as the founder of Kombucha Town and the Culture Cafe in downtown Bellingham. Those have both been businesses that have been established for a long time, over a decade now. And I am excited to be able to step back from those businesses and be able to really dive into my passion, which is community development and public service. So I am running for the mayor of Bellingham.
What are you most proud of in your career?
For me, there's a couple. First would be the fact that I was able to successfully transition my mother, who became pretty dependent early on with early onset Alzheimer's. My father had passed away in 2008, and then right after I graduated from Western, my mom developed early onset Alzheimer's. And so the first 5 years of my business was actually a very small sort of mom and pop style business. It was starting at the farmer's market and then growing from there. And since it's become a big national company, but being able to spend a ton of really quality time with my mom and have the flexibility to both care for her and then also make sure her quality of life is really high and create products that I really believed in and were able to be successful was probably the biggest win early on. And more recently, it's been very much more about being able to build a company and an organization that has these holistic wellness values and creating living wage jobs that have great benefits for things like paying people, or just earlier today we were at the beach cleanup with resources and I was able to pay my team members to be there, and that's really gratifying to them, and they're reinvesting in our community. So being able to create that culture in that organization has been sort of the crown achievement of my professional career, and it's something that I would be really excited as the mayor to be able to implement to our city government, because there's a ton of potential in this community to really shine.
There are a lot of different tools to tackle homelessness, but we don't have endless funding. What do you think is the most effective tool deserving county support? What is your top priority for tackling homelessness?
There are a lot of very passionate and hardworking people in our community that are actually doing a lot of the work to help tackle the homelessness issue, which is sort of a source issue for a lot of the issues, especially downtown regarding crime and drug use, things like that. And so really creating strong partnerships with those organizations. My favorite example of that is Homes Now. They're a really awesome tiny home village based model that has groups of residents that's capped at 25, and they're all people that are on the spectrum of homelessness. They can accept about 80% of those people that are on the street, depending on their vulnerability and time on the street, and they have a community-run facility there, and so it's actually incredibly cost-effective. It's something that is several factors cheaper than some of the other similar models that are run by more service providers or larger charity organizations that have more corporate structures, I guess. There's one actually on Lakeway that's similar that costs astronomically higher amounts of money to operate per person than the Homes Now model, which is incredibly cheap. It's actually less than a couple $1,000s per person per year, which is a lot of time to support somebody, for them to learn the skills, to be able to do the work, and really create the community between these residents and the people that are really suffering. And so making sure that organizations like that are really helped. I've met with them several times, and the city government, unfortunately, has been getting in the way a lot, more so than helping facilitate continuing to solve some of those problems. And so really fostering those relationships, being able to scale those models that work really well. If you look at some of the more government-funded models, they're incredibly expensive, right? As you'd mentioned, the budget is a very important part. And so by finding the models that do work, we can actually save a ton of money by taking some of the pressure off the more expensive models. And so it would more than pay for itself through savings, which is my favorite way as a business person, is saving money is the best way to make money. You could expand programs that are more effective. And so I've already been doing that really over the last 8 months in my journey to becoming mayor, and excited to continue to do that and really embrace. That's just one example. There are actually several good examples locally that are operating without much help from the government, and with a lot more help from the government, especially the mayor's office, could really thrive and have a major impact on reducing the effects of homelessness in our town.
The County Council has decided that the jail should be located in Ferndale. Do you agree? If yes, how will you get this project passed?
So the jail is a big hot topic, and when it comes to the police force and incarceration and the jail and things like mental illness in our community, there are these huge problems that are more than just the city. Obviously, the city is the biggest part of our county, and so the jail and the way that the county and the city interact to plan and to execute the jail is very important. And I've been closely monitoring that process, and I'm pretty impressed at the amount of mental health and more transitional and re-educating and rehabilitating prisoners. That is a big focus of the new jail program, so I am excited that it's getting a lot more of that focus than the prior jail. The existing jail is so bad, it's inhumane. I mean, you can go see, it's pretty easy to find for yourself online some of the stuff that's there. And so I think that really making sure it's an integrated part of a holistic approach to both reducing crime and drug use so that we don't need the jail, and supporting the people with mental health issues in our community, again, so they have a safe place, so they don't end up on that slippery slope that leads to the jail. So I do think it's a critical infrastructure investment that's long overdue, and will ultimately be a good use of taxpayers' money, but it needs to be there needs to be a lot of accountability in that to make sure that it doesn't just lead to more incarceration, because it's pretty classic understanding of how our society works is if you have more jail cells, they get filled up, and that would be what we would want to avoid. And so having that sense of awareness and building that into the plans of that big of an investment are critically important, and I'd be taking as a high priority, along with a lot of the other elements of my campaign in the way I'd support community, to make sure that it's a lasting investment in our community that ultimately can help create safety and security and wellness in our community as sort of the main goal of that, and how it actually operates functionally.
Bellingham has a continued burden of growth that's outstripping our ability to maintain and increase capacity to meet demand. What will you do to ensure that our aging streets and utility systems will be able to meet the needs of the future?
So Public Works Department is another area that is in need of investment, and more so just proper management and effective management. And so that's something that in my career I've experienced rapid growth, pretty much my whole career, something that Bellingham isn't used to. I think I've spoken to a bit of an identity crisis in some of the recent forums with other candidates about how this town is a very sleepy town that's not used to these sort of growing pains. And so, myself having experienced that at the local scale with my business, the state scale with my business, and even the federal scale with my business, I've been able to learn how to tap into those layers of government and all the departments at the different layers of government for fundraising, for regulation, for making sure that we're getting as much resources as we can from the larger forms of government that are meant to support that as well. And so really making sure that those multilateral conversations are happening and then executed really effectively through either our own Public Works Department and or the contractors that we're using for civil development, to make sure it's very effective and timely too, because it's another public safety issue, and it is a big capacity issue as well. Just building homes is a whole nother subject that is top of mind as well. So without the right infrastructure to do that, it's just another way that it slows it down. So that would be my approach.
Downtown businesses have struggled through the pandemic and the growing impacts of our unhoused community. How will you support our downtown businesses?
So as a downtown business owner for over a decade, I've got likely the most experience and the deepest perspective on what it takes to thrive in that area. And it's something that, again, I think ties in pretty holistically into our community's other problems of the homelessness, the crime, the drug use. I think that a lot of
We've seen a growing emphasis on bike and pedestrian improvements in places around town, as well as an increase in car-pedestrian accidents in other spots. Do you see Bellingham as a safe community to walk in? Do you think the new bike measures are working?
So the biking master plan of our community is actually pretty good and quite extensive. I reviewed it recently, and over the last 10 years, there's been $20 million worth of improvements just specifically for biking and for pedestrian walkability and safety. And I personally am an avid cyclist. I ride all different types of bike. I love mountain biking. I like riding to work in town. I live just I live in Sunset near the freeway and the highway, but even there, I'm 2 blocks from a trail that can go all across town. And so I think that's an amazing asset to our community, and one thing I do commend the existing government for investing in. So we want to maintain that. And we want to grow that with the community too. So I think identifying which of those projects has been the most successful and which ones haven't, how to maintain them so that they're a lasting value, because a lot of those things do need to be maintained, and you don't want to invest millions of dollars into something that then just degrades over not being a priority in a new mayoral administration or something like that. And so that is something that I would plan on, and I do plan on just myself continuing to use and continuing to expand. And I think that Bellingham is, for how sort of rural it is in not being that dense of a community, it is very walkable and bikeable. And so that's something that, having received a lot of benefit from that, I think I share that perspective, having seen our town from so many miles of trails, so many days a year. And so maintaining that is something that I would really enjoy and look at expanding based on the feedback of what areas of the community are growing.
Bellingham continues to try to embrace its role as a diverse community. What does that mean to you? And as mayor, how will you ensure that everyone feels welcome in our city?
So I've been an active diversity advocate for a long time, really since, I guess, my real advocacy started just after college, because then it was a time where I could go to protests and different things. And, I think it's something that it's probably one of the most important things, just diversity in general, to me, both environmentally, culturally, socially, and looking at the legacy of our diversity, making sure that the native stewards of our land here, that their legacy is honored, the agreements that we have there are honored. That's a big part for me, especially since we came in and they sort of introduced us to our land, So there's a lot of history there that really needs to be honored, right? And I think it's something that our society at large is doing a much better job of. Now, there are definitely still a lot of pain points and a lot of discrimination out in the workplace and just the way that society operates. And so making sure that we've got as equitable and an inclusive of a community as we have, I think is really important. Even if you just look at the candidates that are running this year, there's so many more candidates. It's such a more diverse set of candidates, and so I think that embracing of more diversity is attracting a more diverse crowd in our community, which I would definitely continue to support and to celebrate, because I think it is definitely something worth celebrating.
Would you like to share a closing statement?
Hi, I'm Chris McCoy, and I'm running for the mayor of Bellingham. I have lived in Bellingham for almost 30 years now, so most of my life, and have very much grown up and seen so much of this community and received such a great benefit of the natural beauty that is here and from the amazing people that are in this town, having gone, starting in elementary school, middle school, high school, the community college, as well as Western, been through all those institutions. I've been able to really see and integrate a lot of the values of this town and then create my own career and my own family from that. So now, as a father and a successful businessman, I'm very excited to put my community service hat on and throw my hat into the ring for the mayor of Bellingham. And with that, I've got a exciting and very refreshing new vision for this city that I think really resonates with the lifestyle of this town, the place of this town, and the real economic opportunity of this town. I don't see that as much in the other candidates that are all sort of already have or entrenched in the existing government here that has been not avoidant, but unable to tackle some of the growing pains that are there. So check me out, learn about me at McCoyformayor.com, or please reach out in person. I'll gladly meet with anyone that's interested, and I hope to earn your vote come the end of January or the end of July in the primary. Thank you.